Today we are going to learn how to add and subtract fractions. Our learning target is that we will be able to add and subtract fractions and mix numbers fluently. And when adding and subtracting fractions, you must have what we call common denominators. The top number in a fraction is called numerator. The bottom number in a fraction is called denominator. Blank is a type of fraction when the numerator is bigger than the denominator. That is called an improper fraction. And then finally, blank is a number that consists of a whole number and a fraction, and that's what we call a mixed number. Here are your steps to adding and subtracting fractions, which we will go into more detail on the next slide. So with the first example, I want to break down our steps. Step 1 is to find a common multiple of the denominator. So looking at number 1, we have 1/8 plus 7/10. So our first step is to look at the 8 and 10 and know that a common denominator is what is a common multiple that both of these numbers share. And right off the bat, my mind thinks of 80. 8 times 10 is 80, and 10 times 8 is 80. So we can set these up into common denominators by taking 1/8 and multiplying the numerator and the denominator by 10, which gives us 10 over 80. And then taking 7/10 and multiplying it by 8, because that gives us the common denominator of 80. And then 7 times 8 is 56. So now that these have common denominators, we are able to add them. So we're going to write our new fractions, which is 10 over 80 plus 56 over 80. And when we add our fractions, we want to multiply straight across on our numerator, and that sends our denominator to stay the same. So it says to add or subtract the numerators in step 3. So step 3 is 10 plus 56 is 66. And then step 4 is to keep the denominator the same. So now we have 66 over 80, and it says to simplify on step 5. We always want to simplify. So I'm going to write our new fraction right here. And we think about a number that divides into 66 evenly, that also will divide into 80 evenly. And if they're both even numbers, we know right off the bat that 2 will work. And if we could think of a bigger number right off the bat, then we'll get to our end result faster. So 66 divided by 2 is 30. And 80 divided by 2 is 40. So we evaluate our answer and make sure that there's not a number that divides into 33 evenly that also divides into 40 evenly. And there isn't. So therefore, that's our final answer, and we box that. Going to number 2, we're going to go through our steps again. We want to find a common multiple. If we look at these two numbers, we notice that a common multiple of 3 and 6 is 6. So this time we only have to change one of the fractions, which is this one right here. So 1 over 3, we want the common multiple of 6 in the denominator. So 3 times 2 equals 6, and what we do to the denominator, we also have to do to the numerator. So 1 times 2 is 2. Now that we have common denominators, we can add or subtract these numerators. So let's reset the problem to 5 over 6 plus 2 over 6. So remember, our next step is to add the numerators. 5 plus 2 is 7. And then step 4 says to keep the denominator the same. Therefore, it is 7 over 6. So now we simplify. We don't want to keep anything in a improper fraction. So now we're going to create a mixed number. So 7 over 6, remember we said that fraction notation as division, that means 7 divided by 6. So we can take 7, we say it first, we write it first, divided by our denominator, which is 6. So 6 divides into 7 one time, minus 6 with 1 left over. We're working in fractions, so we're going to keep our fractions. So this becomes the numerator. And remember, this becomes the denominator. I'm going to run out of room. So then now our whole number and our mixed number is 1. Our remainder is 1 numerator and then a 6 denominator. And we box our answer because we are completely simplified. Now we have 9 and 2 over 12 plus 5 and 7 over 8. So I like this problem because we can do two different things. We can look at 12 and 8 and find a common multiple. Or we can notice that 2 over 12, they're both even numbers. And remember earlier we said if they're even numbers, we can simplify those. So 9 and 2 over 12 can be divided by 2 to simplify before we start our problem. So that becomes 9 and 2 divided by 2 is 1 and 12 divided by 2 is 6. So this can or cannot make our problem a little bit easier. So we have 9 and 1/6 plus 5 and 7/8. And so now looking at these, I can see that 48 is a multiple of 6 and 8. Just thinking about 6 times 1, 6 times 2, 6 times 3, and the same with 8. Thinking what number do they share? And they share 48. So I'm going to take my 9 plus 5, and I'm going to put them over here. And that's going to give me 14. That's my whole number. Now I'm going to just focus on 1/6, which we said we want to get our common denominator of 48. 1 times 8 is 8. And then we want to get 7/8 and multiply both numerator and denominator by 6 to keep the common denominator of 48. And then 7 plus 6 giving us 13. So I want you to go ahead and finish this problem and press play whenever you have your final answer. So you should have gotten 14 and 21 over 48. So now after you pull down your whole number and you pull down your fraction, you're going to make sure that your fraction is not improper. If it's improper, then you're going to be having to add to the whole number. And then we want to make sure our fraction's simplified. So 21 and 48 happen to be divisible by 3. (21) divided by 3 is 7. And 48 divided by 3, if we're not sure, we can come over to the side. 3 goes into 4 one time. And then into 18 6 times, leaving us with 16. So your true final answer is 14 and 7 over 16. Remember, this space is also used for questions. If you have any questions or want to write down any key points, go ahead and do that in that space or create that space in your notes.